So the XDefiant beta has unfortunately concluded, leaving us now with a big question mark on when we can play next, whether that be in another playable state pre-launch or the launch of the game itself. But in the wake of the beta being turned off, we now have a lot more insight into the landscape of the game and how it will feel and play later on down the line, whenever we may get our hands on it next. Today I want to take some time to examine that with you and let you know that there is indeed some really positive changes coming here for XDefiant going forward. So as we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Do you like the sound of these changes? Interested in playing it again whenever it launches? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoy the video, you'll find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things COD and anything FPS related. I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, let's talk a little bit about XDefiant and the changes that have already been detailed for upcoming. So throughout my playtime during the beta, there were a few things that were super glaring to me, but overall, a lot of the stuff that we hear about in today's video is actually some just really pleasant things to hear about overall, not necessarily things that were super detrimental to the gameplay experience during the beta. But throughout my playtime during the beta, some of the things that I really had a problem with were input lag, netcode and connection, and just some of the balancing of the game overall. However, I do fully recognize that this was a genuine beta, not a demo like we've seen happen in the last couple of years for Call of Duty and some other games, but it was meant to be a play test to find and iron out bugs and issues. So thankfully, the ones that I mentioned I had issues with, they've already been addressed and then some. But breaking it down a little further, input lag, we all know what that is, but it kind of felt like there was like a clunky, almost quarter-second delay to everything that I ended up using. Mentally, you could adjust to it. You're still at a disadvantage of it, but like you'd recognize, okay, I kind of have to move a little quicker here in my reactions for things. So you could get the hang of it, but it still would be a disadvantage in that regard. But I'd heard that it was something apparent with the PlayStation 5 controllers, which would make sense given that I play on PS5 scuff with PC and had not broken out any of my older PS4 controllers or tried my Series X controller. I'd heard about that with PlayStation 5 controllers in particular, both on PC and on PlayStation 5. So if it's more of an isolated incident, that's nice to see that it's not necessarily an all-around issue with input lag, though regardless, the devs had mentioned that they are aware of it and that they'll have a fix incoming. Netcode and connection, again, this is one that I'm sure you experienced. This more of a general baseline issue with the game is that you were dying around walls and such. There were a few updates that were pushed out even during the beta to help improve it, but there's only so much you can do in that sort of week and a half, 2 weeks that you had the ability to play. So expanding on it further in the future is absolutely something that's going to be touched on. Then also the balancing of abilities, that's something that I heard a lot of people talking about, and I absolutely agree with some of the sentiment around that. Things like Libertad's healing was absolutely nuts. The Purifier Ultra for the cleaners was instant death. That was kind of annoying, even at a very long distance it seemed, like the animation and effects weren't actually reaching you, the character, but you'd still die. The mag barrier shield for Phantoms was annoying, but again, all of these have been mentioned as in the works for some tuning going along the way. This being a beta, we do know that we'll see that balancing and adjustments here made. But again, all of those explicitly mentioned, but what else is coming beyond just the basic gripes that I maybe had with the beta? This is where we now turn to Mark Rubin, the executive producer over at Ubisoft working on this, in which he took to Twitter during and after the beta in wild clarity. We talked about this here in both the XDefiant videos so far, that I think the biggest takeaway for me is just the clear communication that we had seen from developer to community. It's one thing to not necessarily agree with something that may be in the game, but to hear an explanation as to why that's the case and potentially have your feedback input to make changes on said item in the game, that just means the world to me as a player and is incredibly refreshing, shifting focus from the COD franchise where it seems like everything falls on deaf ears. But firstly, one of the big things that I'm sure a lot of people in the COD scene will like is that there's not going to be skill-based matchmaking. He reiterated this multiple times here, but it really comes down to just the sample size that we had. The closed beta was exactly that, a closed beta. There's a much smaller sample size and player subset that wanted to do their best. I mean, the most hardcore players are naturally going to be the ones that want the earliest of access to showcase the game, to get in as early as possible. The people that are the dubbed casuals probably don't even know the game was in beta just yet if they know it exists. Whenever they see it as a free-to-play game listed on their console store or their PC storefront for Ubisoft, that's something that they're probably going to then be more inclined to download it whenever it's the full launch, advertised as free, and instead not something that you have to go to their website, register for it, check your email, input the code, hope the code works, download the game, then jump in. You see what I mean? It's definitely something that the more hardcore players were on during the beta weekend, so there might have been that sort of facade of skill-based matchmaking, even though it's not actually going to be there once the game is launched, nor was it there during the beta. It was just a more hardcore subset. Crossplay options are going to be enabled here with launch as well, in which you're going to have a healthy number of options for crossplay. For example, with Call of Duty right now, you have it basically just on or off, and sometimes you can't even turn it off depending on what platform you're on. But with XDefiant, you're going to be able to have the ability to just simply have it on, as you would playing with every single platform. You'll be able to have it console versus console, like PlayStation or Xbox only, cutting PC out of the equation, or you could even do it a little bit further where it's PlayStation 5 to PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5 to PlayStation 4. So you'll have multiple different options here for that, which is definitely a nice way, I think, to handle the whole cross-play debate and the people that maybe want to avoid PC players. However, one other thing that will help alongside that is there's going to be input-based matchmaking. So if you are somebody that doesn't necessarily want to play against mouse and keyboard players, or mouse and keyboard players that don't want to play against controller players, whatever your input is, that is what you'll end up be matching up against in your individual matches. Now, if you do party up with somebody, say you're on controller on PC, but they're on mouse and keyboard on PC, you will end up having those mixed lobbies across the board, and again, depending on what your crossplay options may be, but you will see that mix of input only at that point. So definitely a nice way, I think, to handle the crossplay and input-based matchmaking systems. Persistent lobbies will be something we end up seeing as well, where you can end up having those old school COD rivalries here, where match over match, you can do your trash talk, back it up with games, or maybe not, so long as you end up playing that same singular playlist that you're in. If you have a host of playlists and like a sort of quick play bundle, you do run the potential of losing that lobby, but if you just queue up for like domination, that is something you'll be consistently placed in that lobby over and over and over again until somebody ends up losing. So definitely nice and a classic thing that a lot of players from COD want back as well. One thing that is not something that I ended up experiencing, but is definitely nice all around for players that did, is that there's going to be a better either anti-cheat or report system, where there was an issue with the beta where if you got spam reported, just like you would to be shadow banned within Modern Warfare 2 and the Call of Duty experience with Ricochet anti-cheat, unfortunately XDefiant actually didn't do this as well, if not better, than COD, because if you got mass reported, you'd end up being instantly banned. No review or appeal process. It was just something that simply banned you outright just by spam reporting. So obviously that's something that you need to see worked on, and it will be worked on here for the full launch, which is definitely nice. We'll also see further controller support as mentioned by Mark, and we'll also see additional modes coming beyond just these technical fixes and changes as well. There was a lot of calls for people that were classic COD fans to potentially want to see kill streaks in XDefiant, and while Mark Rubin shut that down, that there's no plans to add kill streaks or anything like that, they did state that they're definitely open to and may even work on a kill streak type mode where you end up getting 3 kills for your ability and 7 kills for your ultra. Though he did say regardless of the game mode, he does have a really cool idea for a sort of nuke for 25 or 30 kill streaks. So that'll be cool to see what that all comes down to, but it's not necessarily something we'll see in the near future. Then he also mentioned that there will be a search and destroy comparable game mode coming at or near launch as well, for those that want a bit more variability in terms of how to play the game. The final thing that was mentioned here in regards to content and upcoming changes for XDefiant for the launch and beyond is that there will indeed be seasonal support here for the game going post-launch, with each season introducing at least a new faction every season. So a couple of different characters you can play around with different passive and active abilities as well as ultras, plus also what I would imagine is new weaponry and maps alongside all of that. But that was the stuff that was confirmed. So honestly, from here on out, XDefiant, an already fun beta. I know it's not for everybody. It is very much the return to form to the classic arcade shooter style, but if you enjoyed it, it seems like it's only going to be getting even better from here, from where we are now to the launch of the game and beyond. So while we don't have a specific date for that launch just yet, it's definitely nice to hear if you ask me. So that said, that's what we're gonna call it. Just wanted to fill you guys in with a little bit of updates on XDefiant if you guys were at all interested in hearing further. But let me know your thoughts down below. Do you guys like the sound of these changes? Do you get really excited about it? Or oppositely, are you not really caring too much about it? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things, not only just Call of Duty, but other FPS titles here on the channel as well. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.